Have you ever wondered why some people stay in relationships that are clearly harmful to them? It's something that confuses many, but the answer lies deep in human psychology, emotions, and survival instincts. Staying in an abusive or toxic relationship is rarely a matter of weakness or stupidity. Instead, it's often a complex mix of factors that intertwine to make leaving incredibly difficult. One major factor is what psychologists call trauma bonding. In many toxic relationships, abuse does not occur constantly. Instead, periods of cruelty are often followed by moments of kindness, affection, or apologies. These brief good moments create a strong emotional attachment, a psychological tether to the abuser. Over time, the victim becomes dependent, not just emotionally, but mentally, holding on to the hope that the relationship will return to those caring phases. Research shows that around 70% of people in abusive relationships return to their abuser at least once, largely due to trauma bonding. Fear is another powerful reason. Many people stay because the prospect of leaving seems frightening. They fear being alone, losing financial support, or facing an uncertain future outside the relationship. Sometimes, the outside world feels more threatening than the abuse itself. According to studies in social psychology, fear of isolation and loss of support is one of the strongest predictors of why victims stay. Low self-esteem also plays a critical role. Abusers often deliberately undermine their partner's confidence, saying subtle or direct things that make them feel unworthy or incapable of surviving independently. Over time, these words sink in, and the victim begins to believe that they deserve the abuse or that they cannot find a better life or partner. This internalized belief traps them further, making the idea of leaving feel impossible or even self-punishing. Hope for change is another factor that keeps people invested. Humans naturally cling to positive memories, and in abusive relationships, victims often remember the rare moments of affection or care. They hold on to the belief that these moments can return permanently and that the abuser can change. Research on abusive relationship dynamics shows that hope for change often prolongs the cycle of abuse, keeping victims engaged despite repeated harm. Repeated exposure to abuse can also create what psychologists call learned helplessness. When people experience ongoing harm and see no effective way to stop it, they may begin to feel powerless. Even when opportunities to leave exist, victims may feel as if their efforts are futile. Over time, this feeling of powerlessness can cause them to stop trying, internalizing the belief that nothing they do can improve their situation. Social and cultural pressures further complicate the situation. Families, religious beliefs, and societal norms can all place an invisible weight on someone to stay. Leaving may feel like personal failure or even social shame. In many cultures, there is a strong emphasis on maintaining relationships or marriages, regardless of the personal cost. These pressures can make the idea of leaving seem not just difficult, but wrong. Finally, there is the psychological mechanism known as cognitive dissonance. Humans naturally strive for consistency between their beliefs and actions. When someone has invested time, energy, and emotion into a relationship, leaving can create mental discomfort. To reduce this, victims often rationalize staying. They may think, "It's not that bad," or "I can handle this," convincing themselves that their choice to stay makes sense, even when it's harmful. To better understand, imagine Maya, a young woman in such a situation. Her partner alternates between harsh criticism and rare gestures of affection. She fears being alone and losing her social support. She clings to memories of the few good moments, hoping he will change. Over time, she begins to rationalize staying, telling herself, "I can manage this." Maya's story illustrates how trauma bonding, fear, hope, learned helplessness, social pressure, and cognitive dissonance all combine to trap someone in an abusive relationship. Understanding this is crucial. People who remain in harmful relationships need empathy and support, not judgment. They are navigating complex psychological forces, and leaving often requires planning, help, and safety considerations. Simply telling someone to just leave ignores the deep underlying factors that hold them in place. Recognizing the mechanisms at play also helps us better support friends, family, or loved ones in these situations. We can offer assistance, provide resources, and create safe spaces for them to explore their options. Awareness of trauma bonding, fear, low self-esteem, hope, learned helplessness, social pressure, And cognitive dissonance allows us to respond thoughtfully, rather than with frustration or blame. Practical support is essential. Listening without judgment, validating experiences, providing safe resources, and empowering victims to make their own choices can make a huge difference. Studies show that victims are far more likely to plan an exit successfully when they have strong emotional and informational support. Ultimately, staying in an abusive or toxic relationship is not a choice made lightly. It is a survival strategy, influenced by emotions, mental patterns, and environmental pressures. While it may seem incomprehensible from the outside, for those experiencing it, leaving can feel nearly impossible. Empathy, understanding, and patient support can make the difference in helping someone break free. Even small acts of understanding can have a profound effect. Listening without judgment, validating their experiences, and providing information about safe options empowers victims to consider change at their own pace. Change is often gradual, and support is most effective when it respects the victim's autonomy and timing. By learning and understanding these psychological factors, we not only gain insight into human behavior, but also learn how to respond in ways that can truly help. We see that staying in a harmful relationship is not about weakness, it's about complex survival, hope, fear, and deeply ingrained patterns. And with awareness, compassion, and guidance, it becomes possible for victims to reclaim their lives and step into safety.